Hello everyone.
We welcome you to our book club. I am Miss Maka.
And I am Mr. Derill.
We are going to discuss some of the masterpieces of the literature together. But why is it so good to discuss books? Mr. Derill, what do you think?
Well, Ms. Maka, it's up to us to understand the message that the book is trying to show us. And it teaches us skills as well, I think. Analytical skills, thinking skills. There are a lot of things that we can learn from discussing books in the way that we are going to do in this show.
Yes, of course. And I hope you will really enjoy them.
Ms. Maka, today we are going to start simple with a short story, a classic short story, but something maybe easier for our listeners to get into.
Yeah, so this is The Last Leaf by O'Henry. But before we start talking about the book, let's look at our agenda. Of course, we will start with the vocabulary that you need during this program. Then we will look at the author. So we will tell you a few things about the author. And then we will talk about the summary. We will tell you in short what is the story about.
From there, we will look at some of the characters. These are the people that move the story from the beginning to the end. We will look at the setting, usually questions of the where and the when. And then we'll move on to the main themes. In other words, why did the author choose to tell the story in this way? And what did he hope to tell us?
Yes, of course. And finally, we will conclude the whole program and then we will give you a homework.
And I guess it wouldn't be a lesson without homework, so I'm looking forward to the answers.
Yeah, sure. It will be very interesting.
Now, let us begin with the vocabulary. We have chosen 8 words that we are going to focus on in our discussion and that are in the book itself. So we would like you to get to know them. First word, willpower. Willpower. This is when you have control of your own mind, your own actions, when you have self-control.
ნებისყოფა.
Next word, leaf. Leaf. These are the green parts of a plant, and usually they start to fall off in the late autumn and the winter, and this is very important to our story.
Yes. ფოთოლი.
Now, our next word is branch. Branch. These are what the leaves are attached to, so the wooden parts that stick out of the tree.
ტოტი.
Our next word is vine. Vine. This is a special kind of branch. This is a branch that grows along walls. It needs support somehow to grow.
ვაზი.
Our next word is ladder. Ladder. A structure made of wood or metal that you use to climb up or down a structure.
კიბე.
Our next word is masterpiece. Masterpiece. This is often a person's greatest work of art or some work with high artistic qualities.
შედევრი.
Our next word is wet. Wet, to be covered in water, to be softened by water somehow.
სველი.
And our final word, it's a verb, and it is to sacrifice. To sacrifice. This is when you give up something of your own for the benefit of someone else.
თავგანწირვა. Thank you, Mr. Derill. So we have a question from the vocabulary part. The question goes like this. What 2 words make up the word willpower?
I suppose the 2 words are will and power. Will, of course, means determination, and power means strength. So together they make strong determination.
Oh, thank you very much. That was really interesting. I hope that everyone has a really strong willpower, right, Mr. Derill?
It's useful for life if you do.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, Ms. Maka, let's move on to a discussion of our author today, O'Henry.
Yes, so the full name is William Sidney Porter, who was born in 1862 and died in 1910. He was better known by his pen name O'Henry. He was an American short story writer. His stories are known for their surprising ending. It means that you will be a bit shocked or surprised when you reach the ending of the story. But they were also quite playful. He also had some problems with law and was sent to jail for 3 years.
Okay, well, I've got a story, Ms. Maka, about how he chose his name, O'Henry. Now, as you mentioned, none of his names start with O. So where does the O come from? Actually, he was looking for a pen name, a pseudonym, to be used for his work. He asked a friend, what's a cool name? And the friend said, well, why don't you pick just a single letter of the English alphabet? And he said, O'Henry thought about this for a while, and he said, well, O is the simplest letter you could possibly write out and say, and he chose it just for that reason.
Oh, that's so interesting. So he became a journalist. That's when he started writing his stories. So maybe this kind of skill in journalism helped him writing some short stories. So who knows?
I agree. Now, he started most of his short stories in 1902, so at the beginning of the 20th century, when he moved to New York to be near his book publishers. While he was there, he wrote about 380 stories, all in the space of about just over a year. Now, how did he do this? He wrote a story every week for that year and a bit, like a couple of months. And this is the dedication he had to writing and to his story craft.
Oh, that must have been pretty hard work. So I think that's why he was really loved by the readers. But he was not liked by the critics, to be honest. He died of alcoholism in 1910. So sad.
I wonder if the critics did that to him in some way. Maybe. Well, I think we've got a question for our audience now. And it is this. Why do writers sometimes choose pseudonyms to write?
In my opinion, it is interesting and catchy, way more attractive, and sometimes it raises interest to the readers.
Great answer. That is a great answer. She caught the essential points.
Yes, definitely. So also, I think O'Henry is really very catchy.
It is very catchy.
I can't imagine calling him like Porter Sydney Porter. Yeah?
It could almost be the name of a chocolate bar or something.
Yeah, maybe.
O'Henry.
So, as promised, now look at the summary. The Last Leaf is a short novel that was published in 1903, just 3 years before the writer's death. So the story is set in Greenwich Village during an epidemic. So the story is about an old artist who saves the life of a younger artist, and this younger artist is dying from the epidemic, and the older artist makes her believe that she really has a chance to continue living.
Now this younger artist, through her window in the where she's trying to get better, she can see an old vine. If you remember, it's the special kind of branch that grows off of a wall. She can see it through her window, and she can see that it's losing leaves. It is autumn after all, and it's losing leaves one by one. She believes that she will die when the last leaf falls, and hence the story's title, The Last Leaf. So the leaves continue to fall every single day, but the last leaf mysteriously stays up and doesn't fall.
So, ill woman quickly recovers. At the end of the story, we'll learn that old artists who always wanted to create something wonderful, a masterpiece, he actually can do it now. So he paints this realistic leaf that helps the woman to recover. But this old artist himself catches cold while painting the leaf, and he's painting in the rain this last leaf.
You know what a great story. That sounds like a classic already.
Yeah.
Sacrifice and a whole bunch of other themes that we will talk about later.
But before that, let's ask a question to our lovely audience. Do you think Mr. Berman knew he would die when he decided to paint this last leaf?
I think he knew that he would die, but he was ready to sacrifice his life for this girl Johnsy because he thought that he had a mission in his life at last.
Yeah, thank you. So it's of course up to the reader
Yeah.
to decide whether he knew or not. But I also think that he was quite a strong man.
Yeah, I mean, someone else might answer differently, but it's good that we have opinions like this. That's what this process is all about, having your opinions and explaining them.
Yes. Now let's move on to the character section. So who makes the story so interesting? Who are the people who are involved in this story? So the first one who we would like to focus on is Sue. So this is Jonesy's roommate, a true friend of Jonesy who never leaves her alone. Sue is an artist herself. She earns a living by selling some kind of illustrations to some magazines.
So this Sue sounds very loyal. Would you say that?
Yes, definitely. We can see from her behavior.
That she's a very loyal
Yes.
person. Okay, and our second character will be Johnsy. Well, that is a nickname actually. Her real name is Joanna, as you find out in the story. She's a young painter from California who becomes sick with pneumonia. Now, in those days, it was hard to cure. There were no real medicines for it, so if you caught it, there was a good chance you would die. And she is convinced that she is going to die from pneumonia. With the sickness and pain that she feels, she gets it in her head that when the last leaf outside her window falls from the vine, she is going to die.
Mr. Derill, maybe we can say that she was quite superstitious.
That's a good point. I think it's fair to say that she probably has a lot of superstitions in her if she's willing to believe something
Yeah.
like that.
Let's wait to the main things. But before that, let's look at the next character, Berman. So we can say that he is one of the main characters. He is an old painter who lives in the apartment basement of the building where Sue and Jonesy live. He's over 60 years old. He has gray and long beard, and he's quite intelligent. All his life he has spoken about painting some kind of masterpiece, but of course he didn't know when he would paint this, but he knew that he would do it. And he has never started working on it, actually.
Now, I'll speak a bit about his character. He feels that the girl's responsibility, their safety, is actually his responsibility. So he feels he's connected to people that are around him. To save Jonesy's life, in fact, he goes out himself, paints the last leaf on that wall to trick her, to kind of fool her into thinking that she is not going to die because the leaf's not going to fall off. And unfortunately, he gets pneumonia and he dies instead. So I think you could say that he's a very responsible person and willing to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, and you could never wish a better doctor.
Yeah, he wasn't a doctor, but he was as good as a
Yes,
doctor.
okay.
Okay, I think it's time for a question. And our next question is Sue considered a good friend for Johnsy?
In my opinion, she is a good friend to Johnsy because she never left her friend and always stood by her.
That's a very good answer, and I think that is true. Like, she stuck by him, her.
Yes, exactly. A loyal friend.
Yeah, she was a loyal friend.
Okay, there is one more question for our audience. Why was Mr. Berman's final work a masterpiece?
In my opinion, Mr. Berman's final work was a masterpiece because it was very realistic. It saved a person's life and sacrificed his own life in creating it.
Well done. Perfect. Thank you very much. So it was a real masterpiece, of course, because it also has a history, right?
It's a masterpiece because of what it represents, sacrifice and dedication and
Yeah.
skill.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the setting part of the story, when and where the story happened. So most of O'. Henry's stories are set in his own town. so the early 20th century. It is a time when New York City is still growing and too many citizens are coming to live in the city. And there are some economic problems as well. And as we mentioned, there are some health problems because we mentioned there was an epidemic.
And medicine wasn't so good in those days. So a lot of people would die from their illness. Now, let's look at the where of the story. Most of the stories take place in New York City and deal with, for the most part, with ordinary people. So he's talking about ordinary people, O'Henry. He loves to talk about policemen, waitresses, those kinds of people and those kinds of jobs. One more thing about the specific location. It is Greenwich Village, and it is famous as a historic area in New York where artists and painters lived. So it's an artistic kind of little suburb. It was very bohemian and it was kind of a modern artistic, modern thinking area. Later, many years later, after O'Henry's time, it was actually kind of a place where folk singers and protest singers and social activists used to live and hang out and talk and stuff.
Wow, that must be really interesting to visit. So I will definitely visit if I have a chance.
You should.
Okay.
Okay, well, here's a question for our audience. Why was the setting of Greenwich Village chosen for this particular story?
I think the setting was chosen because the main characters are all artists, and Greenwich Village was known as artists' hangout.
Great answer. That's exactly it. They were all, our main characters are artists, and where else but Greenwich Village for them?
Yeah, so I would really love to go there.
I recommend it.
Okay, so we have mentioned the main themes and the importance of the main themes from the book. So what are the messages? What did the writer want to tell us with this book? Let's look at the main themes, some themes that we have chosen. Of course, there you can find more, but these are what we have chosen for you.
Very good point, Ms. Maka. This should be one of our main focuses in future episodes as well. The discussion on themes is what we want to bring out more. Now, our first theme is art. As you know, they're all artists. They're in an artistic location. Of course, it would be art. John C. and Sue, if you remember, have come to New York to pursue careers in art. They want to be artists. And old Mr. Berman himself is an artist, kind of a failed artist. And it turns out that he is an alcoholic failure, which is kind of close to the O'Henry himself. He was an alcoholic by the end of his life, so maybe that's art copying real life in a bit. So Mr. Berman has tried his entire life to paint a masterpiece, but he has never found the courage to do so.
Okay, and however Berman's painting of the leaf saves Jones's life, it is so realistic it actually fools her. So she thinks that it's real and it really didn't fall. So Berman finally paints his masterpiece, and this action not only helps and encourages Jonesy to continue living, but it also confirms the status of a Berman as a great painter.
There you go. The power of art to change our lives. Literally, in this case, he saved someone's life.
Of course.
Now, another theme is superstition. Superstition. Many of us are superstitious, I presume, and it is in this story. As you know, Johnsy is certain that her death will come when the last leaf falls. Now, of course, that's a superstition. There's no scientific basis for it. There's no reason she should think that. She just believes that she will die when that leaf falls. And Sue and Mr. Berman kind of dismiss that idea as illogical, or maybe like a kind of romantic attachment to this leaf, because maybe she's dying and maybe she's feeling emotionally kind of weak, and so she starts to believe in superstitions.
Yeah, but however, there is one fact that we should, of course, talk about, is that the strange thing is that this falling leaf didn't really cause death for Jonesy. But at the end of the story, Johnsy and Sue, they hear the story that Mr. Berman contracted pneumonia while painting this leaf, and he died. So the thing is that the last leaf falling didn't really cause death for Johnsy, but it actually caused death for the painter. So it's kind of a superstitious thing, right? So this is what she actually believed. So maybe this was not the person herself, but somebody else. What do you think?
Excellent point. So, you know, it is superstition, but it actually turns out to be true.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a question for our audience. I'm, of course, a foreigner. I'd like to hear some Georgian superstitions, please.
One superstition I know about is about salt. If you spill salt, someone is going to get meal at you, or you are going to have fight.
Wow, that's a great superstition. I think it's popular around the world, but I didn't know about that last part where you'll get into a fight.
Oh, that's the main part.
Oh, that is the main part. Okay.
Okay, and there is another question for you. In what way can art save a person's life?
Art that we make, or even the kind that is made by others, can remodel our inner realities, providing renewed strength to our own identity and the way to give voice to difficult feeling.
Wow, that's interesting. Of course, it gives us some kind of feeling and power. What do you think, Mr. Derill?
Yeah, I think that art has so many effects on people's lives in ways that we can't even understand, and that is partially the reason why we do these kinds of discussions. The effect that a work of art, like a book, can have on us is powerful, and we should try to do more of it. Okay, Ms. Maka, I think it's time to wrap up our discussion today. And it was a great discussion, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. And we had really interesting story. So we talked about the author, Mr. O'Henry. So we told you about his nickname or pen name, Mr. O'Henry. So.
And then we went to the summary of the story, and quickly, it's about this girl who thinks that she's going to die, but doesn't die because of the kind act of sacrifice that this older artist does for her.
Of course, we talked about the characters. So Johnsy, who is ill, her friend Sue, who is always with her, and Mr. Berman, the great artist who saves Jonesy's life.
And we had a look at the setting of the story. So it is the early 20th century, late 19th century. And it's Greenwich Village, the artistic bohemian place of New York City.
And we focused on the main themes, art and superstition.
Okay, I think it's time to do a quick summary of the vocabulary list as well. We'll do them really quickly. I'll just say them, and maybe you can say them in.
I will translate. Yes.
Okay, first we had willpower, willpower.
Nebisყოფა.
Leaf, leaf.
Ფოთოლი.
Vine, vine.
Βაზი.
Branch, branch.
ტოტი.
Ladder, ladder.
კიბე.
Masterpiece, masterpiece.
შედევრი.
Wet, wet.
სველი.
To sacrifice, to sacrifice.
თავგანწირვა.
Okay, Ms. Maka, I believe.
Yeah, that's it. And now, of course, finally, it is time for our homework. So we will tell you the homework, and then you will send to us. But what is today's homework, Mr. Derill?
Well, Ms. Maka, this is the question that we would like to ask our TV audience, and it is: write an imaginary letter to O'Henry, offering a different ending to the story. You know, the real ending, we want a different ending.
დაწერეთ წერილი, რომელშიც ო'ჰენრის შესთავაზებთ განსხვავებულ დასასრულს.
Now, send your answers to the address that you see on the screen.
დავალება გამოაგზავნეთ ეკრანზე მითითებულ მისამართზე. So I think that's all for today, Mr. Derill, right?
Yes, Ms. Maka, and I hope that we set a good first step in our journey this semester for the next couple of months.
Of course, and I'm looking forward to the other stories.
the other novels, the other books, and the other discussions and the other main themes that we are going to look at.
Let's thank to our audience for these pretty interesting answers.
Yes, it adds so much to have them here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, I think that's all for today, right?
Yes, and it was a great discussion, and I hope it's the first step in many more discussions like this about main themes, authors, and of course, masterpieces of literature.
Yes, and I can't wait to look at the other stories. They are waiting for you, I guess.
And once again, thanks to our audience.
Thank you very much. That's all for today, and see you next week.
Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye.